Hey everyone, Jeff here, and as a thank you for listening to my show, I'd love to offer you a gift completely free. I have a full PDF with tactics and insights for how I built amazing relationships that have skyrocketed my personal success. If this sounds like something you're looking for, all you have to do is click the link in the show notes below. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Jeff Fenster Show for another segment of Lessons Learned, where today we're going to recap the top 5 takeaways from Cole Hatter on pursuing your calling. Number 1, discipline is both nature and nurture. What allows you to have that mental toughness and that commitment to your schedule, the you time that is necessary to achieve something like 75 Hard?
I think mental fortitude and toughness is a combination of nature and nurture. I think that it's part of how we're raised and the value system that our parents give us and teach us that are important. And so I'll start by giving my mom and dad credit. They are an amazing couple. They're still together, 51 years of marriage, 55 years of togetherness later.
That's incredible.
Which was a huge foundation of where so much of my success comes from. So if I can digress for just a second, any of the listeners who have children, man, fight for your marriage as best you can, because my parents having a solid relationship was the bedrock for so much of where my success has come from. I can tell you that I would not be the man I am today if I didn't have the healthy upbringing that I did. So important to, I guess, share how much we impact our children. So I think that nurture has something to do with it. I think nature does too. I think God gives us gifts and drive and ambition and certain things that manifest as grit or determination or resilience or mental fortitude that we're talking about right now, mental strength. And I think it's a combination of both, but I also think it's a developed skill. So anybody who's listening to this right now, who in a self-evaluation knows that when you're facing challenges, physical or mental or emotional, that you oftentimes retreat and don't like that discomfort, that this is an area you can grow. And I can explain in 75 Hard, having done it 5 times, the mental gains are even better than the physical. You were very complimentary on my physique right now. I just finished 75 Hard 8 days ago, so I've got abs and everything right now, and we're going to make those last as long as we can off the program now. But that physical transformation is just a small part of the mental and emotional transformation that a program like 75 Hard takes you through. And so not that I just want to sit here and be a promoter for that, even though I love Andy Frisella and would promote it with every ounce of my being, that anybody out there who wants to try a challenge, go for it. But the results are I am growing mentally, physically, emotionally, in all areas that matter. And so I think, I guess, the trifecta approach of how to have more mental strength to face life's challenges, both professionally in your business or in your careers and personally in your relationships and in your life. You can't help how you were raised, but that's a part of it. So we who are raising others should keep that in mind. You can't necessarily do a lot with what God gave you. God makes certain people more resilient than others by just his design for whatever his reasons are, but we can grow it. It is I would say it's a perishable skill. And it will atrophy, but I think that it's a growable skill, that being mental strength and fortitude. And the way that I'm even defining it is how much stress you can manage while still having a quality of life that you enjoy and being productive.
Number 2, having a big enough why. What do you lean on those days where you didn't get much sleep because your baby boy kept you up all night? Your wife and you are at ends. You have a bunch of meetings and you got to get your exercise in, or you got to get your reading in, or you got to get your personal you time.
Yeah.
What do you lean on versus saying, I'll do it tomorrow?
So honestly, dude, it depends. And if I'm being totally honest, and hopefully everybody is on this show, there are days where I do quit. Like I quit sometimes 5 times in the same day. And I just will tell my wife, I'm freaking sick of this. And I hate real estate and screw this and that. And well, partners, like we have some challenging partners that I deal with on occasion. And so I do quit. But I think that I have a big enough why that after I'm done feeling sorry for myself and having a temporary pity party, and you and I have had this conversation before, I know that you have a similar model where you give yourself like a timer,
5 minutes,
5 minutes where you're allowed to bitch, complain, and cry. And then when it's over, you got to suck it up and get back to work. I sometimes need longer than 5 minutes. Sometimes I need an entire day where I'll just say, screw it. And I'm a car guy. I'm a car collector, and I'll get in one of my cars and just go drive the coast. We live in beautiful Southern California. Let's enjoy it. It feels like communism nowadays. So if I don't enjoy the ocean, why am I even here? But bottom line is I'll get in my cars and I will quit. But because I have a big enough why and a big enough reason that the money matters, because it's a for-purpose business, each of my companies don't just make money, they make impact, and that impact matters to me. We talked a little bit at the beginning of this episode. You were very complimentary of kind of my philanthropic endeavors. I have a big enough why that after feeling sorry for myself for maybe a whole day, don't quite get back on my feet in 5 minutes, I come back to my business because I know that it's a necessary vehicle for me to accomplish the work that God has given me. And I know that is being a successful business owner, running my for-purpose businesses and making the impact in the world that each of my companies do. And so I think that that's just it. I've got a bigger calling. I don't just want money. And I have materialistic tendencies. I like nice things. I want to dress comfortable. I want to take fabulous vacations. I got home 72 hours ago from Cabo for my birthday, spent 7 days down there on yachts and fishing trips and excursions and all kinds of fun stuff. So I enjoy the monetary things too. But honestly, I don't think I enjoy them enough for the hard days. As much as I love having an entire fleet of cars in my garages.
And you do. You have what, 9?
Yeah. And as much as
I think your Viper is my favorite.
My Viper?
That or that Hummer?
Yeah, the Hummer's a beast.
The
Viper tries to kill you every time you drive it. We'll go for a ride.
Yeah.
But as much as I enjoy those cars and as much as I love trips like I just got back from Cabo and as much as I enjoy those things, I know myself enough to know that those things don't motivate me to keep me going through the hard times. And this could be a really valuable lesson to some of the listeners is if your why right now is just getting rich, you got a chip on your shoulder, you were judged in high school, they said you'd go nowhere, and now you're making a little bit of money and you just got this monetary chip, just dealing with all the nonsense that business can bring you for only making money usually isn't enough. When you find fantastically successful people, they're usually hell-bent for a bigger reason, and their business is the vehicle to solve whatever that bigger reason is. And I think that that's the key. To be able to get through days where you feel like quitting, there needs to be something that's so much bigger that you almost feel ridiculous for having quit temporarily. But people ask me that all the time. Cole, how do you stay motivated? And the answer is I don't stay motivated. I have to motivate myself daily. And there are easy ways to do that. I look at my children. I look at my wife. You know, I'm in a season right now, very blessed, where she doesn't work. She works 24/7, 365 on the children. And with a newborn, that's a lot. She does more than I do. But she doesn't have to make money right now. So I have the financial responsibility, and that's a motivating factor too. And I've got overhead. I've got employees, same as you. I can't take my foot off the gas because it could cost them a career. So there are motivating factors within the business itself. But what really drives me is that underlying why.
Number 3, make money matter. Your whole concept of make money matter, it's not a new concept, but the way you quantify it, the way you say it and articulate it, puts it all in perspective, because I have seen what you do with your events. I've been fortunate to be a speaker at a couple of your events. I've been fortunate to come and meet your group and see how they are now taking that message, using their business as a vehicle and making their money matter to have impact in the world. You also have it's in Mexico.
My orphanage.
An orphanage. Thank you. I was struggling to find the word. An orphanage that you go to regularly. Usually I get to see you on your way south when you're going to or from your orphanage.
Yep.
So I know the human you are, and you're down there actually making an impact on these children's lives. How did you pick that as your purpose, as your cause?
Which part? The Make Money Matter or the orphanage specifically?
The orphanage specifically.
So in 2008, we had a recession, and I was a real estate investor at the time. The real estate market crashed. Most people listening to this might remember that. Some of the younger gen, whatever gen they're called, X, Z, Y, whatever, might not remember because they were in elementary school. But I got my ass kicked pretty good. And when I had lost almost everything and I was down to like my last thousands of dollars, I decided to temporarily step out of business and go become a missionary full-time. True story. And so my dad was my business partner at the time in my real estate business. I had started a couple of businesses and shut those down because they were failing miserably. Went to my dad and said, you can have my half of the company and make all the money by yourself while I'm gone, which was laughable because we weren't making money. And I moved to Mexico and I lived there full-time.
Where in Mexico?
Ensenada, Mexico. It's 2 hours south of the San Diego border. And I lived there and I became a staff member on a nonprofit called YWAM, Youth with a Mission. It's a Christian nonprofit organization that's a global nonprofit. They have bases all around the world. And I joined the base in Ensenada where my job was to build houses for homeless families. So these very poor Mexican families that live in these colonias, which are the poor parts of Ensenada, they've got a qualification process that they can qualify for where this nonprofit then builds them a home. They need to own land, obviously, for the home to go on, and some certain things. They have to have at least one child under the age of 8. And there's certain factors because everybody in Ensenada in these colonias needs a new house. And so that's what I did, bro. I was just down there building houses for homeless families. And one day I was asked to go and build a stage. So what was that thing that we're always standing on? I had to go build a stage at a church. And so instead of building a house, me and my construction crew for this nonprofit went out there, and I met this couple, and this stage in this little chapel that we were building, this couple ran a ministry for women who were addicts, who were recovering. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. You guys like help women recover through alcohol or drug addiction. And I noticed that some of these women were moms and the kids were there. And I'm like, well, what happens to the kids while the moms are going through the program? And then they were just kind of like, they hang out, they play soccer, and they just wait for mom to get better. I was like, oh, this sucks. Let's do something for these kids. So without taking you through the play-by-play, I ended up helping them secure some more land and starting an actual orphanage, where I was like, let's start an orphanage and let's take these kids whose moms are going through the recovery process and foster them at the orphanage. Let's have real orphans at the orphan. So we've got a mixture of either true orphans that are waiting to be adopted or kids that we're fostering there while they're waiting for mom to get healthy. And let's put some money into this and let's do this. And they agreed, and we did. And so I spent what I had left on that orphanage to get it started, and had 11 kids at the time that I was taking care of. I would bring them groceries every other day, and I ran out of money. And that was where Make Money Matter was born. And we can get into that in just a second. But I didn't find that orphanage. It found me. And so finding this couple, Rebecca and Marcos, who still live there and still run it to this day, was the beginning of it for me. Seeing that need, identifying that there were these displaced kids that needed a place to live, and having the entrepreneurial drive of being able to see the vision of like, you guys need an orphanage, and these kids can't just wait for mom to get better. They should be in school. And so we built the orphanage, and we now have 30 kids there. And that's kind of our peak, is we'll range anywhere from 20 to 30 kids. And they all go to school, and they all have health care, and they all are taken care of, and they're all fed, and they're not hungry, and it's amazing. And we've turned it now into an actual 501c3 called MakeMoneyMatter.org, is our nonprofit. And we're just down there taking care of these kids. And so how Make Money Matter was born was I ran out of money. Remember, my businesses were failing, and I took like my last $20,000 to my name, which might sound, depending on the listener, $20,000 is a lot of money. Well, when I was in my peak, it wasn't. And so when that was all I had left, it was like I had lost everything. So I moved down to Mexico with that 20 grand and was living off of it. And then again, started this orphanage and ran out. And so I needed to come back to America, start a nonprofit, and ask wealthy individuals like you to support me. This is what I was thinking in 2011 is now where we are in my timeline. And so I'm like, man, I've got these amazing kids. I can't afford to take care of them anymore. I'm in over my head because I can't just shut this thing down. So I need to go to America and raise money. But the entrepreneur in me, remember, I had been making money in real estate prior to that. I didn't feel good just asking people to just charitably give. I wanted to sell them something or provide a service or do something. Well, coincidentally, at the exact same time, Tom's Shoes was taking off. You heard of Tom's?
Of course.
For any of the listeners, don't know what Tom's Shoes is. For every pair of shoes they sold, they gave a pair away. That's how they launched. They've changed their model since. But they were getting all of this PR, and they were everywhere I looked, and people were wearing them, and they were becoming so popular so quickly. And I was obsessed with that business model. And I said, this guy, Blake Mikowski, figured it out. He didn't start a nonprofit. He didn't go ask people to donate. He started a for-profit business that has a charitable aspect. So it's not just a traditional for-profit, but it's not a nonprofit because he's getting rich. It's something in between, which I've since coined and trademarked for-purpose business. He started a for-purpose business. And I was like, this is brilliant. This is what I want. This is what I need. I'm going to go back to America, run businesses, which I'm comfortable with, make millions of dollars, and have them give back to fund my orphanage. And that's where it started. And so I was like, I'm going to make money, but I'm not going to make it like I used to. I'm going to make money matter. And I remember the first time I ever said it, I was explaining it to my mom at a competitor. I was at Nectar. True story. And I
Nectar. No, good for you, Nectar.
I don't even think this was 2015.
You didn't even exist.
Yeah, you didn't even exist yet.
But
so
we
I didn't have
an
a choice.
unevolved lifestyle even then.
I didn't have a choice.
You.
Thank you, bro. So I'm getting a green juice with my mom, and I'm explaining to her that I'm now back from being a missionary, but I'm still going to be a missionary, but different. I'm going to be in the business field, making millions of dollars to fund the missionary field. I'm not going to be a missionary in the field. I'm going to live in America and fund that thing that I thought I was going to be a part of when I lived in Mexico. And I was drinking a green juice, I swear to God, at Nectar. It's so funny. All
things start with what you fuel your body with. Look at that brilliance.
I've told this story so many times, and I always say I was having a green juice with my mom, but now it matters because they're a competitor of ours now. But so bottom line is, I said, I'm going to make money matter. So I started for-purpose businesses, and the concept again is like Tom's Shoes. He didn't get rich and just write checks to charity. His business model was philanthropic. For every pair of shoes he sold, he gave a pair away. Of course, he baked the cost of that into the first pair that you were purchasing, but it was brilliant. I loved it and I did it. And that's where Thrive was then born, because people like you that were in my friendship circle saw how I was running my businesses and were inspired by it, because entrepreneurs are thirsty for meaning and for significance in their lives. They don't want to just be money manufacturers anymore. They want to feel alive by doing their businesses, and by connecting your business to a cause, you can feel alive in ways otherwise you couldn't. And so that's where Thrive was born. And I started telling people how to make money matter. I'm like, hey, listen, just take your business model, find a charity, a cause, a need, something that you can contribute towards that matters to you. For everybody, it's different. And run businesses that fund those initiatives. And so I do it myself by running my businesses that fund my orphanage. But we have other causes that we support too outside of my orphanage as well. And that's what make money matter means. Don't just make money, make it matter, because while your businesses are generating revenue, they're giving back simultaneously.
Hey everyone, just wanted to take a second to say how incredibly grateful we are for all of our listeners, and I want to hear from you. Your feedback is greatly appreciated, and it will only help us make this show better for you. So any questions you have, click the link in the show notes below and let us know. Now, back to the episode. Number 4, turning adversity into inspiration. You almost died at some point. Was that in Mexico?
Nope, that was earlier. Well, I almost died a couple of times in Mexico, but that's a different story for a different podcast.
Because when you were telling me the story about you almost, you got thrown out of a car at 80 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That was before Mexico?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was 2004. I'm a 21-year-old kid. Let me back up even more to 19. When I graduated high school, I went and started working with the fire department. In high school, I did evening and weekend classes at a local junior college, so that by the time I had graduated from high school, I had done all my prerequisites and I was ready to go into my fire academy to then go and work for a department. And so by 19 years old, I had my whole life figured out. I would spend my next 30, 35 years at that department to get my full retirement, full benefits, and I would be in my late 40s, early 50s, just chilling, right? So that was my plan.
Pension.
Yeah, pension, exactly, benefits, the whole deal. And then I knew too, with the flexibility firefighters had in their schedule, that I would end up starting a business at some point, that firefighting would be my bread and butter, but I'd start something on the side. And that was my plan. And 2 years into that plan, I did get in the car accident. My two best friends and I were leaving Orange County, California, driving out to Las Vegas, Nevada. I was in the back seat. My buddy Steve was driving. My other best friend, Matt, was in the passenger seat, and I was in the back. And we got into a rollover car accident where I got ejected going about 80 miles an hour on the freeway in the middle of the desert. And I got really, really hurt, as you can imagine, getting thrown out of a car at 80 miles an hour.
Were you buckled?
I was seat belted, yes. That's the first question everyone asks. And what ended up happening was we flipped front, not sideways, but bumper over bumper, end over end. And your seatbelt stops you from frontal impact. The seat itself is the only thing holding you from going backwards. Well, in the chaos of the accident, the seat of the car itself broke, laid flat, and I shot out the back window with my seatbelt still buckled. My legs just slid out from underneath the lap belt. The chest part didn't matter because I was going backwards. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yes.
So as the car was flipping, my own body weight broke the seat flat, and I just shot out the back window like where you would load groceries. It was an SUV, a Toyota 4Runner. And so the back bench just laid flat. I shot out the back. Crazy, right?
Yes.
So they had to shut the freeway down in both directions because they had to land a helicopter to rush me to the hospital. I was bleeding out of my eyes, my ears, my nose. I had a traumatic brain injury. My brain was bleeding inside your skull. If you have an internal bleed in your body, your skin is elastic, so you'll swell. And have you ever broken a bone or anything?
Yep.
You have a swell. Well, your skull can't swell. It's fused shut, right? It's like 7 bones that are all fused. So when you have intracranial pressure like I did, it just comes out your eyes, your ears, your nose, just any escape it can. And so they knew that I wasn't doing well. And so they had to shut the freeway down, flew me to the hospital. And I had other injuries too. I had a spinal contusion, so I couldn't walk. I was temporarily paralyzed from the waist down and wasn't supposed to survive. Obviously, I did. Spoiler alert, here I am. But it took me about a year to learn how to walk again and to fully recover. And that's what took me to entrepreneurship is immediately after that car accident, I was so hurt, I had to move into my mom and dad's house. I couldn't feed myself. Like, bro, I was completely incapacitated. I had to be carried to the toilet and picked back up and carried to the couch when I was done. And so had to leave firefighting, had to move back in with mom and dad. And it was in that season that I found entrepreneurship where I was like, well, I don't know what my recovery is going to be. I was blind in one eye for a while. Took about 6 months to get my vision back. But right after the accident, it's like, cool, I'm in a wheelchair. I have a brain injury. I'm blind in one eye. I'm missing half the skin on my body. who's going to ever hire me or pay me? I need to figure out how to make money all by myself. Like I need to figure out how to provide for myself. And so that was where the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey began, was sitting on my parents' couch in a wheelchair, or I guess sitting in a wheelchair, trying to figure out, how to provide for myself. And as I surveyed the wealthy individuals I had around me, which was like my parents' friend and some family members, it seemed like real estate was the common denominator. Even if they were a doctor that made their money in medicine, they like bought the building that their medical practice operated out of. And I saw this common denominator where it's like, man, rich people all do real estate. They either just do real estate or they do something else and put all their money in real estate. So if I want to get rich, I need to do what rich people do. I'm going to do real estate. And that was the beginning of my real estate business, was right after the accident. So we told the story a little out of time.
That's okay.
But 2004 was my car
It's
accident.
like the movie Crash. We'll just jump around.
Yeah, we'll go backwards. So 2004 was my car accident. 2005 was when I started my business. 2010 was when I moved to Mexico. So I had a 4.5 year run of running my company profitably, successfully, and then the recession killed me in 2009.
Did your two best friends survive?
No. So in that car accident, I lost Steve. He was the driver. He was also ejected out of the car. He was also flown in the helicopter. He was also in the same operating room with me. But it was his time. It wasn't mine. And so I ended up losing Steve in that accident. And it really screwed me up. I not only had crazy grief from losing Steve, but I had the guilt of surviving when he didn't. Mm-hmm. And so that was tough. And Matt understood my pain because he too survived in that accident. So it was Steve driving, Matt in the passenger seat, me in the back seat. Matt and I were the only survivors, and we lost Steve. And we had this galvanizing, I don't know how you would explain it, but going through that experience with Matt made us closer because we just lost somebody together and knew 100% what the other person was going through, in a way where everyone else who was around us was like, we're so sorry for your loss. We loved Steve too, but they weren't in the car. They didn't know what it felt like to be the only survivors, right? So Matt and I became inseparable. 66 days later, I had gotten out of a wheelchair and onto crutches, and Matt wanted to celebrate that breakthrough by going dirt bike riding. That was something that we loved to do. And I was like, you're crazy, bro. I can't, I'm hurt. And he's like, no. You sit in a wheelchair, you sit on a motorcycle. This is perfect. Let's go ride dirt bikes. So long story short, after he convinced me, I said yes. He loaded the bikes. We went out to the desert, and he and I were putting around real slow. And he was in front of me. I was behind him. And we were on our last ride to load the bikes up and to go home. And he climbed this little hill and disappeared across the top, because when you're at the bottom of the hill looking up, you only see the crest. You don't know what's on the top. I then, 30 seconds behind him, got to the top of the hill, and there was no top. It was just a huge hole. It was a 20-foot by 10-foot wide hole. And I fell into it. And as I was falling into it, I grabbed onto a bush, literally about the size of this microphone, like a basketball, and held onto it and was staring straight down into blackness. And I couldn't see the bottom. And so I was able to kind of grab that bush, climb out, hold onto the edge of the hole by my armpits, and kind of roll out of the hole. Get up, start looking for Matt, assuming that he had gone around the hole and continued on. Long story short, couldn't find him. So I called 911 thinking that he had fallen in this hole, and this thing could be like 30 feet deep. I couldn't even see the bottom. He could be down there with a broken arm, broken leg. It's pitch black. You cannot see the bottom. And so I was like, dude, I need to hurry up and call 911 because he would be down there bleeding, and I need to hurry up and get down there and help this guy. So called 911, figured out how to explain to them where in the middle of the desert I was, and they arrive, set everything up. It took 7 hours. Finally, the police chaplain said, I need to speak to the family. So the police chaplain pulled us away from all the chaos, and he said that this is an abandoned mine shaft, that this hole right here, a company came in, dug out a bunch of silver, and just left the hole. And he said, unfortunately, in the California deserts, there are tens of thousands of abandoned mine shafts. There's no law that requires them to put any fence around it or cover it. And so he said, unfortunately, we have people that fall in mine shafts a lot. And he said, sadly, that this was the deepest mine shaft he had ever seen. It was 780 feet deep. The reason that it took so long to find Matt is he had fallen all the way to the bottom and he didn't survive. And bro, I lost it. So September 9th, Cole, Steve, and Matt get in a car accident where we lose Steve. November 14th, Cole, Matt go down a mine shaft and Matt doesn't survive.
And if you don't catch yourself on that bush,
we would have just been missing people. Yeah. Our parents would have a day or two later been like, why didn't they come home? They would have found Matt's truck at our campsite, and they would have never found us because my bike fell in and Matt with his bike fell in, my dirt bike. So I climbed out without it, but there was no evidence. We would have been missing people to this day. My parents would have never known what happened to us. They would have thought we were abducted and kidnapped or something. I don't know. But so in a 66-day period, I lost my two best friends in accidents that I was in. So the grief of losing them was a lot, but the guilt of surviving without them was soul crushing. And that was a part of my why is, I had a really ugly season immediately following those accidents where I was a victim for a while. I was just like, God, how could you let this happen? How could Steve die? How could Matt die? Why is my whole life screwed up? Why did I lose firefighting? Why am I living with my parents? Like just why? And then I realized that being a victim doesn't give me any power, and it certainly doesn't honor Steve or Matt's life. So I decided instead of victimhood that I would use my tragedies to fuel me for motivation. And I made a promise to Steve and Matt that I would live a big enough life for the three of us. We were all 21 when that happened, all of us. So I've now lived 19 years longer than they were given. And I told Steve and Matt one day, I just looked up and started talking to them. I said, I'm going to do things in my life I never thought I could or would have ever tried before. I'm not going to go back to firefighting. I'm going to find something else and do something bigger and push myself further than ever so that when I get to see them again in heaven, because I'll be face to face with them again and I'm face to face with my creator, I'll be able to it's emotional, but I'll be able to point back in my life and say, I used every talent, every moment, every opportunity, every gift, every relationship I was given, God. I used everything to the best of my ability and I did it all for Steve and Matt. And hopefully by the time that I do get to see them again face to face, there'll be millions of lives that have been changed through my work that I'll be able to share that credit with Steve and Matt. And so back to your question 20 minutes ago of what happens on days I feel like quitting, I remember that I made a promise to two guys that didn't get a chance to live. And no matter if it's a stupid business partner who's acting like a dickhead who needs to be outed from the company or whatever it is that's frustrating me at the time, I realized that I made a promise to two people who didn't get to live another day, who they would give anything to live my worst day. When my business is frustrating me or life, if my wife and I are having a hard time or whatever it is, if I'm facing a challenge, I remember that the fact that I'm even facing a challenge is a gift. And this is so cliche, right? Like every day is a gift, and that's why they call it the present and all that. I get that, but like I almost died. And so there's a reality to that cliche.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. Exactly. There's a reality to that cliche that I live now where it means something to me about time. And so I don't have time to feel sorry for myself more than a day at a time because I have a lot of work to do because my life has to count enough for three people.
Number 5, where there is chaos, there is opportunity. All successful people I know are involved in real estate. All the wealthiest people I know are involved in real estate. I've never been a really good real estate investor. I've dabbled poorly. I end up buying houses that don't make me money because for some reason I buy them and I don't rent them out. I don't know what I'm doing. I majored in real estate. Bought my first house in 2007 and the recession hit me as well. So I just realized okay, I'm going to focus on my for-purpose businesses for myself, my for-profit businesses for myself, and real estate on the side. Lately, I've been dabbling. And so entering this new period we're in where real estate has surged in value over the last 3 years, interest rates have surged from free money to now what we, maybe not historically high, but high interest rates for us over the last decade.
Yep.
What is the opportunity you see today?
So there's a lot. This is probably the most exciting time that I've seen in real estate for a long time. Right now, the news and the general attitude towards real estate is sour because of interest rates. Like you said, we've just had consistent increases of interest rates that have harmed the lending world and therefore impacted the real estate ecosystem quite a bit. But where there's disruption, there's opportunity. Where there's chaos, there's opportunity. What I always tell people is if you can create a disruptive brand, then usually you can get a disproportionately large amount of market share and be super successful. You've got the Airbnbs that was disruptive in the hospitality space. You've got the Ubers that was disruptive in the transportation space. You've got all these disruptive brands, right? Well, starting a disruptive brand is hard to do because not only do you need a good idea, you need a good idea that's like has to do with timing and certain factors that are outside of your control too, right? To have that disruptive brand. Well, in a season where your industry is being disrupted, then every brand automatically gets to be a disruptive brand. So right now in real estate, things are so chaotic and there's so much uncertainty that that's where the opportunity comes. And so we're at the very beginning of some of the best deals, I think, that are going to be coming out. You can talk big money, like institutionally wise. A lot of these banks like hedge funds bought a bunch of real estate, like strip centers and apartment buildings and hotels at low interest rates on ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. And as those rates are now adjusting in today's new rates being double what they were when these banks got these loans, they literally have to dump assets and cheap. This is Grant Cardone's whole strategy right now, is he's just going up and buying up all these massive A-class buildings from these REITs and these hedge funds who got good financing when we were running the country like we should be. And in today's economy and the interest rates where they are today, those assets no longer make sense to them. So they're dumping them for cheap, and guys like Grant Cardone are coming up and picking them up. So where there's disruption, there's opportunity is the point. In all sectors of real estate. In the residential part, we're seeing the exact same thing. What's interesting right now and why home prices are holding is because people don't want to sell because they know they're going to get rid of their 3% mortgage to then go get a 6% mortgage somewhere else. So even homeowners that would be trading or upgrading or getting a new house aren't right now. And so we're seeing that slow down. What I think is going to happen, like everything else, is people will adjust. And so people will get used to the interest rates, and we might even have that come back down. The Fed has said that they may have one or two more increases, then they're going to hold for a while, and then they're going to start peeling back a little bit because they've seen that we still have high inflation, but interest rates can't keep going as aggressively as they were at 50 basis points and 75 basis points a pop. That can't happen anymore. And I'm getting a little bit in the weeds right now.
No, but it's good. Because I think we have some listeners that are looking to get involved. They want to capitalize on this, but they're, like me, unsure how.
So I'll go through the weeds and then I'll go back high level and make it easy so everyone can benefit from this. But you've got homeowners that are reluctant to sell because they're going to upgrade a home, sure, but they're going to triple their monthly mortgage because they're going to get a new interest rate, which is much higher than the one they've already got. But I think as people start to settle in, once the Fed's done raising rates, once they hold and even start bringing them back down, people will get used to it. Just like we have in business, our costs have been going up at Everbowl because of shipping costs and supply chain disruption from post-COVID and all the stuff that we've seen. So we've had to adjust our economics accordingly. And then our customers had to adjust. And everybody has to adjust in an economy like this. The same thing happens in real estate to where people will get over it and they're going to buy anyway. They're not going to die in the house that they're living in right now. They're going to start selling again. And in that season, I think we're going to see a lot of discounted real estate. So what I'm doing personally right now is stacking cash.
Thank you for listening to another segment of Lessons Learned. I hope you learned as much as I did from our special guest, Cole Hatter. Hey everyone. First, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And if you guys haven't heard about my new book, Relationship Bank Account, click the link in the show notes or search the title on Amazon. This book is packed with all my secrets to success in both relationships and life. Make sure to pick up a copy, and if the book helps you on your journey, let us know by leaving a review. I appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you on the next one.